I'm going to give you aconite. This is this is a remedy that we have been using in the center for chronic cases, and I believe that your experience with aconite must be only acute cases or acute fevers. It's very interesting. You see, 10 years ago, I also used it only in some acutes, where sometimes I found out that it was a very good remedy for what we call today neurotic states. And since then, we have been using it quite frequently for mental problems, and with a very good result. Eventually, it came out to my mind that aconite state was a state of inflammation that was coming out through an exposure to cold and sudden winds, etc., in olden times. Today, we have different other shocks, the culture shocks, as we call it, or the society shocks, that they bring about states of inflammation, not of the physical body, but of the mind. So many of our remedies, we have still to discover the mental, emotional picture which they present, and which is very interesting, sometimes like aconite. And you will see that aconite is indicated after a mental shock, and the state it produces is quite different from the fever that we know. So as Kent says, now the aconite individual is a vigorous and plethoric individual, and that is so. Is usually sympathetic, vital, and extroverted. Yet, in spite of this robustness that appears robustness, they are exquisitely sensitive to a mental shock, especially when that shock is fright. So they have a vulnerability to sudden, simultaneous overexcitement of both the circulatory and the central nervous system. When those two systems are both excited, we have a state that's aconite. Especially the aconite picture seems to come after traumatic events in which the patient has sensed a presentiment of death, an actual imminent death. When somebody put you a pistol, says, give me your money or I'll kill you. That is an imminent death. I mean, he may shoot you at the same time. That is the kind of shock that brings about an aconite state. In the repertory, we have fear of death and elements from fright for aconite. So we have an aconite state arising from, say, automobile accidents. What, can you tell me other conditions?
Being mugged at knife point.
Where, what?
Being mugged at knife point. Mugged, having your things stolen from you.
Yes, yes. What is the condition that brings imminent death?
Myocardial infarction.
What is?
Heart attack.
No, heart attack. Heart attack is a condition. I mean, an outside stimulus, not from the inside.
An earthquake.
An earthquake. During the earthquakes in Athens, we had to dispense a lot of aconite to get people away from this tremendous panic and fear of death that had overtaken them. Earthquakes.
And bombs.
Yeah, if you find yourself in an explosion or in a bomb or something like that. Another situation in which aconite can arise is when people are trapped in elevators, or if they go through a tunnel and the train stops and the lights goes off and they stay in that tunnel, they say from that moment onwards I have developed this condition. Also, another condition I found that can bring about causative factor is when a patient has heard or has overheard or has been told straight away that the operation is going to have, it may end in death. But anyhow, in all this situation, the idea is that death can come at any moment. You see, closing elevator. Now, no air anymore, I cannot breathe anymore, I'm going to die. It's very imminent. The death is imminent in all these situations. Now, this shock penetrates the whole body and produces phobias, especially fear of death. And then what else can produce? Vertigos. It can produce unilateral numbness of one side of the face, of the body, and affects the circulatory system by producing intense tachycardia, flushing, and faintness. Now it's very interesting that this crisis will not last for very long. They will last for a few moments or for a few hours. They will not be in the crisis, the people. They just come for a few moments, for a few hours. They go into that fear, tremendous fear of death, panic, vertigo, faintness, dizziness, and all this symptomatology, tachycardia, and then the shock goes away, and then it comes again. Not regularly. It can come in with different provocations. Can come, but the person lives for years now under that state of fears and all this symptomatology. The most characteristic is that in almost all cases we have fear of death and panic, tremendous panic. And the sense that death is coming, is imminent. You see in the books it says that predicts the time of death. This is in acute conditions. In chronic conditions, you will not find that you will say, 12 o'clock I will die. We have another situation which I will explain to you. Now, all these symptoms, they will not occur in one individual. In some individuals shall have fear of death, vertigo, fear of fainting, and intense tachycardia. Other people, we may have trembling, perspiration, unilateral numbness, such as numbness of the half of the face. Another group of patients, they experience a kind of psychogenic dyspnea like lobelia. And they need to take a deep breath all the time. Or we may have flashes of heat on the whole body or especially in the head. There are general aggravation time, and this is most frequently in the night, especially from midnight to 4 a.m. In general, we have an aggravation from heat, general aggravation from heat. But sometimes aggravation from cold as well. But say 80% of the times is heat and 20% is cold. And the crisis can be precipitated by heat when they are heated up in their bed or in an over warm room, in a room which is very warm. Now you see this individual with intense fear, with pounding tachycardia, with all these big symptoms, and you expect that you will see him when he is in your consulting room. You will think that he will be like plethoric and intense. No, it's not. When you will see him, consult him, he's out of crisis. So he will be calm, quiet, natural. When the crisis comes, then that is the violence, that is the intensity, there is the panic, there is the fear. All these are very intense. When you converse with him, when he describes to you, he will not even describe with this intensity as we say it. What he will say, I go into a panic, or I have tremendous tachycardia, I go into a panic, I have tremendous fear of death. So these patients are very sympathetic, as we said, very sympathetic. They need company, and also they express their feelings easily. They're extroverts. This sympathetic element leads to a state of anxiety about others. We have anxiety about others. They are concerned very much about their relatives, their friends, and they react out of proportion towards something that has happened to a friend or a relative. They erupt. Oh, what happened to you? Oh my God, I mean, it's out of proportion, the reaction towards the event. Because of that element, aconite patients, they do not like to hear bad news. We have elements from bad news. You see, there are certain rubrics in the repertory that you will not see them in the patient. You say elements from bad news. You will not see that. You will have to see the whole person. I mean, the crisis, they come short times, intense, the fear of death, the panic, I'm dying, tachycardia, perspiration, etc. Then they go out of that. Then it's okay, then they talk. They are sympathetic. It's the whole picture that will make a person aconite. Anxiety about others is a two-dimensional prescribing. You see, do you have anxiety about others? Yes, I'm anxious about others. It's an information which is useless. What you are interested is to get the personality, I mean, the essence behind. Is that aconite case? Is that aconite? Is that lobelia case? Is that asylum case? Is that alumina case. You see, that is what you are interested to get. And that is why we give the materia medica in this way, to make it alive. Otherwise, anxiety about health. But he says he's anxious about health, but he's not. Can't you see he's not? He does not care. You see, because in Greece, for instance, the doctors ask, are you sympathetic? Yes, very sympathetic. Underline 3 times. All Greeks are sympathetic. I said, okay, this is not a symptom, because it is the equality which everybody has, and everybody thinks that he is sympathetic. Sympathetic, sympathetic. I'll become a Saru. Sympathetic. Sympathetic is a symptom when the person is really suffering because of the suffering of the others, and he cannot control himself. It's not the other says, yes, I sympathize, yes. No. The sympathetic, if you want to put it as a symptom, has to be really suffering because of others and cannot help it. It's not that, I mean, if a woman has a child, she's always sympathetic. But the woman, phosphorus woman, or the aconite woman, or the sulfur woman, will react completely different. You see, the aconite is in repertory says anxiety about others. In aconite will be an eruption. You see, whoa, what happened? Oh my God! What shall we do? It's an eruption. It's an intense thing. The anxiety about others. The phosphorus will have completely different kind of anxiety. The phosphorus will say, "Oh my God, did you hurt your feet? You are well. Your head is here. Yeah, everything is okay." I mean, he shows all the affection, all the concern. You know, he's present there. He's interested about you. The sulfur will not show you the anxiety. The sulfur will say the child is late. He's usually coming at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. The sulfur, they say 12 o'clock. Yeah, he didn't hear the door. They stay awake, they cannot sleep. We didn't hear the door. 12:15, 20:12. Oh my God, now it starts. You know, maybe some accident, maybe where is going, no, why? And they wake themselves up. They will get up from bed, and they will walk up and down, they will go in the veranda, watching, you know, the child coming, you know. Once they will see the child coming, they will go back and sleep. The phosphorus do not make this so much imagination as much as when he faces something which is bad to others, then he becomes very sympathetic. So each one shows the sympathy in a different way. The arsenicum also is anxiety about others. Anxiety about others with arsenicum is inner anxiety, inside. You see, who others? Those that he is connected and he feels a kind of security having them. The father, the mother, the brother, you know. So, oh, what happened to my brother? You see, because he holds on to him. And so he wants him to be well in order to help him in case he's not feeling well, etc. It is an anxiety on a reflex, you see, where he wants the support of others and he wants others to be well to support him. It's a different thing in attitude. It's a different thing in personalities. Whereas the one anxiety with the other is anxiety about others, you underline 3 times. It doesn't say anything. It is what type of anxiety? Is the phosphorus anxiety? Is the arsenic anxiety? Is the sulfur anxiety? Is the quantum anxiety? Is beta carbonic anxiety? Beta carbonica can have anxiety about others. Totally different. So this we are interested to understand the differences. I have a little problem. Well, in the acute state, as we said, the fear of death is that he's going to die now, within half an hour, within 1 hour or 2 hours, whatever it is, but now. In chronic states, the fear of death that's imminent, it appears to be within a span of time, let's say in 3 months, in 5 months, in 1 year. The way I am, my heart is going to give in and I'm going to die, and they are absolutely sure they are going to die, and they make preparations that when they die they make their will where which children will get what. And they will tell you that through these symptoms, I'm absolutely sure that very soon I'm going to break down, my heart will stop, and I will die. Therefore, I have arranged for everything, you know, that after my death, that everything will be taken care. I mean, this talk is not somebody, if you don't know Aconite, you see, he's a prudent man, he's just thinking about his death, etc. Here, we take into consideration everything which is pathological, is not natural, is not healthy for one to think that in 3 months, in 5 months, I'm going to die. This is pathology, and you will take it into consideration. Except of the fear of death, aconite produces also claustrophobia. Fear of the dark. And especially fear of crowds. The aconite patient will not sleep, many times will not sleep without light on, without the light on. And will not go through tunnels. If he knows that the train is going through tunnels, the lift, he prefers to get up, to go up five stories walking, but he will not go into the lift. Also, you will not get an aconite going into the demonstration. You know, it's a demonstration when too many people are in the streets and they progress. Never an aconite. And they have also a fear of accidents. So much so that many times an aconite will not drive by himself. In order to drive, he will need somebody else to accompany him. Also, aconite has many times fear of disease and has to be added. It's not in the repertoire. Fear of heart disease. And also fear that his heart will stop beating. It appears that those fears are dormant, and there is a little provocation, and they come up as a crisis. In some cases, there is an aggravation which reminds you of lycosis again. and that is when they go to bed and they sleep for 10-15 minutes, then suddenly they wake up with a tremendous fear, they jump up, and they are in a panic. Now the difference is that with lachesis, the fear is not a fear of death, it's a fear of suffocation when they fall in sleep. By the time they go into sleep, aconite is a fear of death, is a panic which comes 10 to 15 minutes after sleep. See the difference? It looks like you may confuse it, but it's not the same. It is 10 to 15 minutes. That means the person has gone into sleep, and the moment that the logic mind has gone away, the fears that have been staying inside out of the fright or whatever it is, they surface. And they surface suddenly, and with such an intensity that the person jumps up and he feels he's going to die. Also, there is an aggravation from heat. You may explain it that when he gets warm in bed after 10-15 minutes, that heat aggravates him and brings the crisis of the panic. Sometimes these fears, instead of making the person wake up, they appear as nightmares. So they go through tremendous nightmares. And another fear that can come about is a kind of mora. You know what is a mora? Okay, I'll describe to you. When they try to wake up, or they wake up without being able to move their limbs. What's called this? Catatonic. Anyhow, this can happen with aconite. They wake up, they cannot move their limbs, and they go into a state of fright and panic. Anyhow, what we observe in general is that the fright, the fears that have been engrafted into the subconscious mind, they surface very easily in the aconite individual, and they bring about these states of panic and fears. It is also, the aconite is the #1 remedy that's affected by earthquakes. And it is an analogous state inside, like an earthquake happening. You know, inside they feel the circulatory system in such a turmoil as if an earthquake is taking place inside, inside him. Sometimes the feeling of the earthquake inside is so strong that they wake up and they feel that the ceiling may fall on them. They have the impression that there is actually an earthquake going on, where the whole thing is happening inside. They feel that the ceiling will crash on them. There's a tremendous commotion inside, and then these states, they go on, and I have seen a state of aconite which is terrifying, you see. One of the time of aggravations of aconite is this twilight time. And I have seen a case of aconite in a state of agony coming every night when the twilight comes, where the person will go into tremendous fear and will sob in such a way like barking. Terrified, full of fear, not being able to express anything at the moment. It was a terrible experience once that a doctor took the patient inside, and while he was in the consulting room, it was about this time, the person started the interview, and then suddenly that syndrome came and was so intense that the doctor got a fright. You know? he comes inside, says, come in. I cannot handle this situation, you know. She was sitting there, I mean, with this syndrome, they will call usually the ambulance, you know, take her there, give her the injection of Valium and things like that. And it was terrible to look upon. The fear. Something that you got scared just to look at it. And with one dose of aconite, not even that crisis went away, but went away the whole. I mean, this woman, she was getting very frequently these attacks. So aconite states, they can start from little things like tachycardias, numbness, and then proceed to fear of death, panic, tremendous panic, and then these terrific fears which come about indescribable. They cannot say what it happens to them, and they most probably they feel the death is imminent, they are going to die, and they take them to the ambulance. The claustrophobia also. I remember another case where the claustrophobia was so much that if in the house there were 6 or 7 persons, she would feel claustrophobic. And she could not stay in that room. She had to leave. Therefore, she would say that I cannot invite my relatives anymore in the house. With 6 or 7 people, she felt claustrophobic. So you understand the intensity of the claustrophobia of... Also there is a fear of suffocation. Fear of suffocation, especially in warm, closed places. And sometimes you will get a fear of open spaces. It's the opposite, exactly. They cannot drive into the Autobahn. They can drive in the city, it's okay. They can go anywhere. As soon as they come on the Autobahn where the space is open, they go into a panic, into a fear. They paralyze, they cannot drive anymore.
Is that because they're frightened of being too cut off from other people?
There is no explanation. They cannot say why this happens. They go into panics, into perspiration, but they cannot explain why. So I'll give you some characteristics of the different systems. In the head, in general, we can say there are tormenting sensations in the head. Tormenting headaches and vertigos. There is congestion, often, and fullness in the head, often accompanied by great heat. there is a very characteristic sensation of boiling sensation inside the head. There are headaches which can come about after fright or after exposure to cold, dry winds. And this is a cold, dry winds is a characteristic of aconite. The headaches are located mostly in occiput and forehead. One-sided numbness of the face, as we said before. And these headaches usually are accompanied by some kind of fear of death. Most probably aconite will be indicated in cases of what cases? With just tremendous fear, this upheaval, tormenting sensations going on in the head with the fever. When the fever is very high, the headache is very strong. When we have severe cases of encephalitis or encephalomyelitis. In the onset, in the beginning of such cases, we do not have frequently the possibility to treat such cases, unfortunately. But from my experience, I have seen that homeopathy definitely can work, and I'm sure better. We do not have the statistics yet, but it can work better definitely than antibiotics. I have seen some dramatic cases in children recovering.
Have you seen meningitis? Treated meningitis? Good results?
Yeah? The problem is we cannot see many cases to have such statistics. You see, we see cases of the child of my sister or for my relatives, or the doctors who are in the center, their children and things like that. I mean that children that are connected very much with homeopathy and their parents know very well about homeopathy. This is the only time where you can take up such a responsibility. Also, I do not suggest for you to take such cases, especially when you are not medical doctors. In the abdomen, there is a characteristic, if you find it, pains in the abdomen which extend to the chest. Also, there might be after a fright a retention of urine after fright. And this, the aconite is very much used in case the newborn, because of the fright of coming to the new world, the urine is retained, then aconite is one of the main remedies. Sudden orchitis, sudden orchitis. And inflammation, sudden inflammation of the ovaries in cases of suppressed menses. But all these symptoms, I think they are very well described in Kent, and is one of the remedies he has given very well in all these details. But I would say we have used aconite, say say 80% in chronic cases and 20% in acute cases. After we knew aconitis, we know it. We have, I would say, hundreds of cases treated with aconite, suffering 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. Chronic cases, especially of that type that I described to you, suffering before we knew this remedy. We give lycosis, we give kali arsenicum, we give belladonna, we give all other kinds of remedies that will not act. And when we came out with the aconite picture, then we had a great friend in those situations in which I'm sure you will find quite a lot in your practice also.
These would be people with not much pathology on other levels.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. Not much pathology. They are functional. All these symptoms, the tachycardias, the vertigos, the headaches, the fainting, they are not functional. They are not pathological. They are not anatomy.
Yeah, I had a case where this lady used to wake up at night absolutely paralysed. She couldn't move, she couldn't sort of touch her husband to sort of wake him up, she didn't get nightmares and stuff. Do you know any other remedies that might have that as well?
Other remedies that they may come for waking up in a fright in the night.
Yeah, well, waking up especially, and also waking up in the morning, they'd just be paralysed, she couldn't move. And it would go around.
You mean that mora, what I said, they could not move their limbs. Yeah. Phosphorus could be. And lycosis, sulfur, medorinum.
In all these cases, the periods of crisis come and go, is that right?
Yes. They're not constant. This you have to have in mind. These are not constant situations. They come and go. Every 2 days, every 3 days, every day, once a day, twice a day, then 1 week without crisis. Then again, it are not regular crises. But when they come, they are intolerable.
When the person sees you, are they a very kind of nervous type of person?
No.
Are they okay? They're okay?
No. They are okay.
So they're bad in the crisis?
Yeah. During the crisis, it seems this is the idea, that a fright took place first. You have to have this. That fright went into kind of subconscious mind, and now, but not too deep. Now, with the least provocation, with some sleep comes up, with somebody or some thought that something may happen, the crisis comes up. With too much heat, the crisis comes up. With going into a lift, they find themselves, oh, I cannot get out. The crisis comes up. They go into the room, they drive in the car, they jump in a traffic jam. Suddenly they found behind, left, right, they get into a panic, they leave the car, they will go.
Can they actually suppress the crisis?
They cannot, no. By themselves, you mean suppress them by logic? No, it's too strong, the crisis. They cannot. I mean, you can reason out with them, they say, yes, I know, but when the crisis comes, it's impossible to control myself. Yes?
Do you find that the fear of the panic is always a fear of death, or can it just be the panic and that's of death?
Most of them, they will describe it as fear of death. Most of them. It's not always that there is fear of death, because some cases you will get the trembling, the fainting, you will get the perspiration, you will get symptomatology which is lower. And fear of death starts and goes on different stages. Starts quite early, I would say.
In Kent's repertory, there isn't a rubric which says effect of shock or shock in the mentals. Yeah. Presumably you would put aconite into that if there was such.
Oh yeah, sure, sure.
Now, what other remedies would you put in apart from aconite?
You put opium, gelsemium, stramonium. But arnica, when we say shock, we don't mean physical. We mean now we're talking about mental shock, okay?
Yes.
Mental shock, not physical, not something that hits you.
Yes.
No.
You wouldn't think of arnica for a mental shock as well.
For mental shock, very seldom. Very seldom. When I say now this remedy, and when I give you these ideas, it's not that I'm covering the whole. You see, all the remedies can have mental shock. All. There is no remedy that can be left out almost. I'm giving you the most prominent.
There is a rubric on page 49, fright, completion.
Yes. Isn't that the same as shock?
Yeah, fright. This is specific for fright. It's not.
Wasn't quite what I meant.
Yeah. This includes more. It's a more general symptom.
Would you say that aconite is more for if the shock is from a trauma that's directed specifically at you, and that certain other of the remedies are
Threatens your life and threatens your life.
your life? What about if someone else's life is totally threatened and you're
Not so much. Not so much. Not so much.
What about another remedy that's more like that? You know, like people they're in a crisis and someone else is the one that's really injured and close to death, and someone that's next to them is in a state of shock.
Yeah. I cannot say for what reason that person has the shock. Because he was too sympathetic with the other, because he felt that something of that type can happen to him. You know, he was the next to be shot. Because a different reason, you have to find out why he had that shock. Here in aconite, the fright is not just a fright. The fright involves, most of the time, the possibility of death. This is what I found out. I'm going to suffocate now here. I'm going to die. Somebody came and put a pistol. You know, this idea is behind the aconite causative factor.
Does the causative factor have to be there in every case? Have you seen it in all?
Almost, yes, yes.
If someone has these symptoms.
One more thing is, you see, so once for all we know. In homeopathy I found out that there is no always. The word always, you can forget. Most of the times, yes. But always, because you will get sometimes a calcarea harmonica who is warm, you will get a passatilla who is cold, you will get an arsenicum who is also warm, you will get an ax vomica warm, you will get an argentum nitricum who is cold. Sometimes. I would like to read you quickly a case. Yes,
If you overprescribe a case,
yes,
do you have the same situation here? That you have got a massive aggravation and you have to wait.
yes.
And at some point then you will get an irritation.
Yeah, overprescribed, you mean different remedies or one remedy?
The same remedy.
The same remedy.
You just pushed it too hard. You can
Yeah, well, the same remedy. The thing is that you are bound to wait, but the thing is how long the patient can stand it. If it is going too long, that means 2 months, 3 months of aggravation. It's not an aggravation anymore. I mean, the longest aggravations I have seen are 30 days. And this happens very seldom. We do not see longer term aggravations very frequently. This is a case of a woman, 29 years old, that she complains for tachycardias, chills, phobias, and a feeling of fainting.
Fear or feeling.
Fears, comma, and a feeling of fainting, together with a numbness of the left side of the body, This crisis now come, in spite of taking Tranxene and Inderal, they come once a week. This crisis is worse in the night when she goes to sleep, and worse in the summer. In the summer she had to notice that the crises were much more frequent. Worse when she, after eating in the night, worse from loss of sleep. Worse when she goes to sleep, it's underlined 3 times. Worse in the summer twice, worse after eating in the night twice, and worse from loss of sleep, not underlined. So can you tell me towards which remedy that looks like a cyst? Why? Because our tachycardias, our numbness on the left side is worse in the summer and is worse when she goes to sleep, when she lies down to sleep. She says, when I have these crises, these tachycardias, I start to have fear that it's going to have an earthquake and that the whole roof is going to fall upon me. She has to take Tranxene in order to calm down. She is worse in noontime when she lies in bed to sleep. She now explains that the crisis starts quarter of an hour after she has slept and wakes her up. And she has frequent urination when she has the crisis. She has bloatedness of the stomach and nausea during the crisis, underlined twice.
Both bloating and nausea, just nausea.
The bloatedness in the stomach is underlined twice, not nausea. Not nausea. Desire for sweets, 2 eyes, oranges, not underlined, and eggs, not underlined, and aversion to milk, not underlined. She's thirsty, underlined once, for cold water, once. She says she does not like cooking. But she likes summer herself. She is bothered by loss of breeze in summer. If there is no breeze, she is bothered. She likes, not underlined, she likes the sea, not underlined. She likes changes of weather, not underlined. She likes the sun, not underlined. She is afraid from great speed in the automobiles. She is afraid very much on going to the airplane. She prefers not to travel at all than go by an airplane, underlined 3 times. She likes to sleep on abdomen, but because she has tachycardia, she avoids and sleeps to the right. She avoids and sleeps to the right. She does not stick her feet out, and she needs a lot of sleep. Fear of earthquakes, underlined 3 times, airplanes 3 times, death once, especially that she will have a heart attack, fears of future, of dead people, and of cemeteries, not underlined. She wants her clothes loose here on the neck. The feet are always cold, even in summer. Desires for company, underlined twice. She's nervous. Talks about her problems, bothered by consolation. Desire sex once. Desire sex. I mean, she likes sex, not too much, but underlined once. This is what I have here. Whatever you make out of that. Now, is this still a Lachesis case? This is my question. And if it is not a Lachesis case, what it is?
Did you say she sleeps on the right during the couple?
She likes to sleep on abdomen, says, but tends to the right because of tachycardia. She's bad. She sleeps on the right.
When did she start having these crises?
10 months ago. No particular reason. She doesn't say. Let me see. Oh yes, after the earthquakes. She started. Okay, so everybody knows the remedy, eh? What's the remedy? Yeah. What is the catching point here? Has anybody noticed? Yes, Corey?
Well, one thing I noticed was something you mentioned about how she went to sleep and then she was woken up out of her sleep like 15 or 20 minutes later because of the...
But in the beginning, she says, worse in the night when she lies down. And then when she explains that symptom, she says it is 15 minutes after I have slept. That makes a big difference and takes us away from Lachesis. Lachesis is when she goes to sleep, the what comes? The fear? The suffocation comes. Not the fear. There is a kind of suffocation. They jump up from bed in terror, Lachesis, while they are going into sleep, in terror, because they cannot breathe. They feel that their breathing process has stopped completely. And they cannot take. They have not the possibility to take. It's still. The chest is still. The vagus nerve is paralyzed where it moves the lungs. And it's a stillness. This is the kind of thing. Here is another thing. So you have to be very careful, very specific. He says, I wake up, she wakes up with a terror, a panic, and fear. Something is happening, my heart, it's another thing. It's fear, it's panic, it's tachycardia, it's chilliness, trembling. It's another syndrome altogether. If we are not careful, you know, what the person means, we have to be very specific, because each remedy has its own personality and does exactly its own tricks. So in order not to confuse one remedy for another. Now here in this case, many people will give Lachesis.
Do you think it would have done anything if they had
To? No, it would aggravate lycosis. Aggravate, yes, will aggravate the case. Will bring more, and she will have more palpitations. And you see the left-sidedness, what's called numbness. You see here how, and then she says, I cannot tolerate tight clothes, but she's not underlying that symptom, but yet it is there. And she has to lie on the right side. And there are palpitations, left-sided. You can make a lycosis case very easily. And I will not be able to give you bed marks, but it's not going to cure the case. Why? Because we did not pay attention to the details. And the details are that she is coming after 15 minutes. She's coming up with a crisis. And then another detail is that he's claustrophobic. Underlined 3 times, you cannot get into closed places, into the airplanes. And then we have the earthquakes, the shock that has started the whole thing. So that makes it an aconite case, a very typical aconite case. So what remedy you will give? What potency? 50M. 50M or CM. Usually I give 50M in such cases, because this is a clear aconite case. 50M. And it's interesting to hear the report, which is since 2 years now, she's okay with this aconite 50M, and she says the first 15 days there was no amelioration, nothing. Then for 5 days there was a great aggravation with tachycardias, with very, very intense symptomatology. After these days, the tachycardias and the numbness disappeared. The phobias she can overcome very easily. The sleep is much better. Once I lie down, then sleep comes. She says, I have become so quiet that my husband does not recognize me the last days. I mean, so quiet, so calm. So, you see, these expressions show the deep action of the remedy and the regulating action of the remedy. Aconite 50M. Just aconite 50M. If you give any other remedy, you will see now there are developing different schools where they will say you have to go deep and find that deep constitutional remedy, etc., etc. Are intellectualizations. You have a picture of aconite you have to give, and it's only aconite that is going to act. Only aconite. But with aconite, I mean, she is already 2 years and she's feeling well. She's 2.5 years actually. Excuse me. Yes, she came on January 82. Yes.
Interesting that she aggravated 2 weeks after.
2 weeks after. Yes.
One always thinks of aconite as quite a rapid acting remedy that goes in.
Yes, very good, very good remark. In spite of we think aconite is very fast acting, very short acting, etc., etc. All these are ideas that do not hold as, how can I say, something that, a rule. It's an idea, yes. It's a short-acting remedy, yes. It is good for colds, yes. But it can do this trick also, which no other remedy will do. No other remedy will do.
Did she get in touch with you during the aggravation time?
No, no. For 4 or 5 days she was aggravated, but she took it. And then
George, what is the longest time you've seen before an aggravation has come on after the remedy?
1 month. 1 month.
Would you expect the aggravation at that time to be severe or mild?
Quite severe, especially if we have like remedies like calcarea carbonica, sulfur, deep acting remedies, which the organism is slow, graphitis, and then burst out.
Did you give her any advice about stopping her trank seed Inderal?
Something?
Did you give her any advice about stopping her trank seed and Inderal?
Oh, she has stopped completely.
No, when you saw her, did you say to her to stop them?
Yeah, I have not seen these cases. I have not seen them personally. I have prescribed, but the Tranxen, in such cases, I know the policy. The doctor will say, okay, you have to stop Tranxen and Inderal, both remedies. Inderal is a kind of beta blockers, and it regulates the heart, kind of. And Tranxen is a major. You have the same.
Would you tell them to stop immediately?
Yes, in this case, because there is no underlying pathology which will make you feel insecure. So you can definitely stop. This is a phobic state. It's come about after a shock. Has persisted. This shock can persist for 10 years. I'll bring you other cases of aconite, 10 years of stent. They will persist the whole life. They cannot get over it. So I want to show you